The following episode of the Black Tornado podcast features no music. There's a lot of talking incoming, so if you're in the mood for a story, hang out for a little bit, check this one out. And the fucking intro goes.
This is Black Tornado Podcast.
Hey, welcome back to the Black Tornado Podcast. All right, everybody, welcome to the Black Tornado Podcast.
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 Welcome back to the Black Tornado Podcast.
Welcome to the Black Tornado Podcast. And welcome to the Black Tornado Year 1 wrap-up. I'm going to be going over the history of the show, this last year, and what's to come for 2025. I'm also going to be taking breaks so we can hear from you, the supporters of the show. The following is the tale of where I started, where I am now, and hopefully where I plan to go. I'm trying to remember things from a long time ago, and it's very possible that I leave some events out of the story. Not because they aren't important, more because it was a long-ass time ago. So, let's get started. I've always been a person that loved collecting demos from bands at local shows. I had a binder just for the local and underground guys. Trading and collecting these CDs was way cooler than going to Coconuts or the CD Trading Post to get new releases at the time. I did street team work ever since high school and a little bit in middle school, handing out flyers, CDs. I've carried mic stands and drum kits. I've lugged amps down icy staircases and slammed my back into a rail so that a head wouldn't get damaged. I found myself working at the door of what was possibly the worst venue for metal bands to ever exist. Promotional work for bands has always been a true passion. I love talking up bands that I like, and I really enjoy showing people these bands. I am and always will be an anti-gatekeeper. So, when did all this start? Like the 2015, 2016 realm? Well, it was when I realized that I could talk to lots of people and share lots of bands, all while chain smoking and absolutely never drinking during a show. I knew this was something that I wanted to try. I had no gear, no experience behind a mic, and a fan base that at that moment consisted of my grandmother. So I started writing, just like I'm doing now. Originally the focus was only on Indiana bands. Oh, how small-minded I was. I had the concept of an idea. A month later, I found myself at a casino, and I was up around $800. So the next day I went out, and I bought my first mixer, actually the same mixer that I use today, this Behringer unit, which is just phenomenal. A couple of microphones, a pocket recorder, various other odds and ends that would come in handy later and help with the show. I came up with the name Black Tornado Podcast because I thought it was original and cool sounding. I ended up being right only about one of those things. Listen to Guar's Sadama Go-Go, and you'll understand. I contacted Ryan Kasparin, who created the original logo, which was a kick-ass skull with the tornado in the middle of its head. If you go on the Instagram, you might see an old button or an old business card. So anyway, now I had the gear, a name, and a logo to get the ball rolling. Well, I needed music to play. So I grabbed my CD binder full of local bands and started the first episode. It went over like a lead balloon, but I kept at it. And then I had the opportunity that led to me finding lifelong friends, the band Hail Shot. Before I continue, we're going to take a quick break.
Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Matt Reish from Night Killer, Mobile Death Camp, Hail Shot, and probably 5 other bands I can't remember. I just wanted to give a big shout out to Adam and everyone that makes Black Tornado Podcast exist. It's programs like this that helps underground metal of all genres grow across the planet and beyond. So keep up the great work, Adam, and here's to another great year of Black Tornado Podcast. Peace!
All right, isn't that awesome? I really appreciate that. So back to Hailshot. I interviewed them in their van with my pocket recorder outside of a small venue that had a lovely fabric couch outside, and got my first dose of being an interviewer. Eventually, Matt Reich, the guitarist for Hailshot, would record the intro for the show, and then, like 10 years later, would honor me with the new version that you've heard over and over and over again. After that, I jumped into the deep end. I was knocking out playlist episodes that were very similar to the playlist shows that I make now. I was selling t-shirts, stickers, buttons, even made a lathe mini record that had the show's original intro music on it. I had a table set up at a show that hosted all underground bands, and I sold one fucking shirt. Good times. I wish I still had one of those shirts, but my grandmother has my personal one. She's probably the only person that skips the music and just listens to me talk. Then came a huge hit to the show, the loss of my backpack with my recorder and binder that was full of show ideas and dates and things like that. But I'll tell that story in just a second. Let's play another one of these support messages.
Hello, my name is Aaron, and I'm the bass player for Ruthless Hustle. I'm here to give a shout out to Black Tornado Podcast on their 1-year anniversary on the new platform.
I love these support messages. I hope you guys have fun with them. They're really cool. I'm super appreciative. All right, back to the story. So I was sitting in my local watering hole, good friend Denny, who, like lots of my friends, is a supporter of the show. I was telling him ideas that I had for the podcast when we were interrupted and asked to take a local drunk home. And after driving this booze bag home, I realized the next day that I left my backpack in his car with my portable recorder and my binder and everything else. So the following day, I went back to what I thought was the right house. Long story short, I never got my shit back. Rest in peace, Larry. One person will find that funny. So without my recorder, doing in-person interviews was out of the question. Then I had the idea to expand the show by moving away from the state of Indiana and taking BTP all over the world. This meant a lot more hours. It meant finding bands, reaching out to them. I ended up joining metal pages for the underground pretty much everywhere. Every state, countries, anything I could think of. I really got into UK metal and landed my first international interview with the band Blasphemer. They're still active. Absolutely go check them out. After that awesome interview that is unfortunately lost forever, I sat in my basement, smoking a cigarette and patting myself on the back for doing something that in the future would become common practice. During the night, I would spend hours on these underground Facebook pages, and I met two really important people. The first was Glenford from Grind Art. We became quick friends during that year. Glenford and I would work together on tons of different art pieces. The logo that you're seeing now that you've seen 100 times, that's Glenford's work. So make sure to check out Grind Art and look up Glenford Cabarsi on Instagram. Tell him Black Tornado sent you. Another person that I met who would end up shaping the show and becoming incredibly important to this whole project was Ian from Demon's Run. I played a Demon's Run track on the original show, and Ian and I also became quick friends, just like Glenford, and he was also a big supporter of the show. So at this point, the show's views were dropping like bodies in an all ages show. I'm sure it had something to do with the fact that I didn't know how my mixer worked. The sound quality was as bad as your favorite black metal band's first demo. I remember somebody giving me a one-word review of my show. They simply said, mixer. Man, I tried giveaways, different playlists. I even had Hailshot come and take over the show, which was, at the time, the longest episode, and it was one of the greatest moments in all of show history. That was such a good time. The numbers still sucked, and I got discouraged, and I fucking quit. I posted for the last time on the BTP Facebook page and said that the show was dead and that I was going to go back to just enjoying the underground. 4 people were crushed by this news. So everything got deleted, including all of the original episodes of the show. Looking back on this, I wish I had saved them on a hard drive or something, because there really was some really good content there. Months passed. The things that I had from the show, I had a handful of business cards, some stickers, but most importantly, I had the friends that I made along my journey this far. At that point, the only time I ever thought about the show is when I would find a business card or a sticker under the couch, or randomly if a friend would ask if I would ever do the show again. Years passed, and on occasion, a friend or two would ask about starting the show again, but I didn't put any thought into it. At this point, I had kept up a strong relationship with Ian that still continues to this day. His musical insights and views on these things we would discuss, it's something that I knew that I really enjoyed. So when I finally decided to do the reboot, I knew I had to have him as a part of this. So I quickly got to work starting up a new slew of social media pages. I didn't know at the time how important Instagram would be. So for the reboot, I wanted to leave the idea of an only Indiana-based show in the past and fully embrace playing underground bands from all over the world. I decided to go with a design that Glenford had done for me years ago, and it's the logo that now you've seen a bunch. Having structure, made me feel like I was on the right track. After weeks of building a game plan, BTP was set for its reboot. I had a new logo, a better understanding of what I wanted, and most importantly, I had a co-host. Not only was the show something that no one else was doing, but to have 2 hosts from different parts of the world brought something truly unique. Getting back on mic lit a fire under my ass that burned so hot I was served well done. The show went on. I got to do what I feel was right. I got to talk about Justin Wallace, list some of his accomplishments, play a live recording of Handsome Prick. Things that I had set out to do in the very beginning, I was already starting to handle. So after the first episode, I got back on my computer and I spent hours trying to come up with ideas and scour the internet for these underground bands. My goal now was the same goal that I had years ago, to promote underground bands that I like and hopefully bring these bands new fans. That's always been the mission statement, the goal of Black Tornado. I don't want your money. I don't want you to give me anything. I just want you to find a band that you like and go and support the band. So, anyway, shortly after the first episode aired, I got massive help from a few friends that would change Black Tornado Podcast and evolve it in ways that the old show would never get to. Now, there's a lot of people to thank, and I'll probably forget to thank some of you, and I apologize for that. But there are 3 people that, as far as street team stuff goes, you can't forget these guys. In no particular order. Corey Stump, Glenford Cabarzi, and Casey Diosimito Sangley. Sorry for saying your name wrong, brother. The combined effort of these 3, they could beat down any street team of even 50 people. When I think of support for the podcast, those 3 will always come to mind first. So, over a week, the Black Tornado numbers, they shot up like a rocket. At least for a small show that nobody knew about and doesn't really get promoted. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's listen to another support message.
Hi, I'm Ty.
Hey, it's Aaron.
This is Corey.
Hey, it's Josh.
And
This
we
is
are
Ruthless
Ruthless
Hustle.
Hustle. Congratulations to Black Tornado on a 1-year anniversary, you filthy animal.
Man, I love these messages. These are sweet. Thank you to everybody that submitted one. You guys are awesome. All thanks to these guys pushing BTP on everybody and every band page they could find. Again, my eternal thanks. And everyone else that's helped spread the message of the Tornado Man. This community is small, but it is powerful. And it really does mean the world to me. So now that BTP had a small following, it made me gear up and get ready for not only new episodes, but new ideas. Enter the Philippines. The Philippines episode of Black Tornado Podcast is still, as of this recording, the most viewed, the most listened to episode of the show. My Philippines people go hard as fuck for their metal, and I love that I was able to share these bands with people in the US and the UK and anywhere else on earth that listen to the show. The podcast got a lot of support from that country. It blew my fucking mind. On my studio desk, there's a number of items that help me with the show. One of those most important to me is my Philippines flag. Whenever I look at it, I'm instantly reminded of how awesome the supporters from that area are. The first theme show went over great. It was so much fun to record, to learn a little bit about another country. I knew that I wanted to do more in the future, and as to date, Black Tornado Podcast has done a handful between different locations and places inside of the United States. Every day, the show's Instagram page was gaining new followers, and I was getting more interaction. More bands started to submit music for the show. The YouTube page was slowly gaining subscribers, and all of that stuff pumps fuel into the weird algorithm machine that I still don't fully understand. I'm really thankful for all of it. Each click makes it possible that the podcast may reach a new fan or a new band. The train was on solid tracks, and it kept going strong. There are so many great moments over this last year. To name them all would take forever. So many killer bands, really funny moments. The support network and the community was growing as well. From bands hooking me up, Good Boy PR helping, reaching out, exposing me to new bands, to becoming friends with the best horror movie podcast around, Blood in the Cornfields. I could go on and on about Mark and Ivy, and let's not forget Luke, but I'll keep it simple. Chopping it up with them is so much fun that if I was getting paid for it, I'd work overtime all the time. I respect them as creators and genuinely enjoy and look forward to new episodes of their show. The collaboration that we did, I call it the peanut butter and jelly of the metal and horror world. It was so much fun, and I look forward to doing stuff like that in the future. Everything was great. The show was getting views and support that the old version of Black Tornado never came close to. I knew I was doing this the right way now. I was healthier mentally. I knew that I wanted to go full bore with the show and really, really dedicate time to it. 12 episodes came and went. Every 2 weeks I would tell myself, shit man, feels like I just started doing this for the first time last week. In between recordings, Ian had been hard at work on drums. He's really growing as a drummer, and every time he sends me a new clip, I was impressed. A discussion was had, and we came to an understanding that his focus would shift from the podcast to pursuing his playing and pursuing his recording. It wasn't discussed in previous episodes, and I won't spend a ton of time on it now. Simply put, Ian is still my bro. I want to thank him with my whole heart for being a part of the show, helping kick things off. The episodes with he and I are some of the funniest fucking times I've ever had. Sometimes I'll still turn on an old episode, click onto a part that I remember laughing at. Point is, all is well. And when new Demons Run comes out, hopefully you'll be able to hear it right here on Black Tornado Podcast. You know, in the middle of writing another part of this, I decided to backtrack. And I want to tell you a story that speaks very highly of Ian's character. And people aren't aware of this. Days before the recording of what would have been the next episode, my cat of 9.5 years passed away from cancer. To say I was crushed is an understatement. I couldn't think straight. I didn't eat. All I did was cry and question why my cat, who hated everyone and everything but me, was taken from me so early. The last thing I wanted to do was record that fucking episode. Ian was one of the first people that I told about what was going on. He was my co-host. I had to tell him. Ian understands one thing about me, and it's absolutely true. The show must go on. And he took over and did the episode Shadows alone. Now, to some people, that might not seem like such a big deal. After all, I had done a bunch of shows solo from years ago, but he hadn't. And he knocked it out of the fucking park. He gave me the ability to process my grief while making sure that the podcast didn't miss an episode. Many friends and family gave me lots of support during this time. Ian taking care of the show was the help I needed. So for that, I will always be thankful. Alright, let's get back to the rest of it. So, I was back to the drawing board. Grindtober came and went so fast, it was crazy. It was one of the few episodes that came in under the 45-minute mark. And I'm sure in the future more of those episodes will probably happen. When you go from 2 people to 1, you have a little less to say. So I decided that I would take this change in the podcast to branch out to an area of the show that I never thought I was very good at. Interviews. If you're caught up with the show as of current, you've heard some of those interviews. And I hope I've done a good job so far, and I'll continue to try and improve them. I'm really enjoying this rotating chair thing that I've got going on. From 4-hour talks with my brothers, the Metal Verbalizers, to heartfelt stories with James from Girl Dad Grind, to rig and tone breakdowns with Dr. Nez, and everyone in between. Speaking of Dr. Nez.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Nez, wishing Black Tornado Podcast a very happy 1 year. BTP was my first podcast appearance ever, and was absolutely instrumental in supporting my most recent EP, High Desert Lows. I'm very happy to have Adam as a friend, and I cannot wait to see what goes on in the next year with Black Tornado Podcast. Thanks a lot, you guys. Talk to you later.
All right. I hope you, as a listener, have been checking out these bands, and, liking them and supporting them and things like that. I've got some really cool things planned for 2025. I've got new theme shows and new guests and more playlists, and even returning to fan favorite locations. Just some really cool stuff. Just stick around for another year. I think you're going to really find stuff that you like. I'm even planning on putting on my own festival where I can get some bands that have been played on the podcast to put on a concert. I'm like Willy Wonka, but drunk, and with less chocolate-related deaths. I think that about puts us up to date. I'm sure I missed some cool shit, but hey man, this is most of it. So in closing, I just want to say thank you to everybody that tunes into the show, all the bands that have helped the show by sending in music, and most importantly to the countless friends that I've made over this last year. Every single one of you is a part of the storm that gives the tornado power, man. I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it 1,000 more times. You are all just so appreciated. And I hope you enjoyed this look back on the history of the show and a little bit of an overview of the last year. As always, I'm your host, Adam. This channel will continue to be your home for underground metal.